Alrighty, so welcome to another episode of the Insurance Toolkits podcast. We had about 5 minutes of time where we talk tech. Unfortunately, you'll have to pay for David's seminar to learn what I just learned in the last 2 minutes, and hopefully he'll give a chance to promote that later on in the video. I've got my good friend Colton with me as well, part of who you chat with when you chat with Insurance Toolkit, so be nice. He knows more about this business than most of us have in our front fingers. So, David, obviously, if somebody has the YouTube app on their phone, they know who you are. If they don't, that'd be a little bit strange at this point of the business. You pioneered insurance content finding its way on YouTube and have done it consistently for how many years?
Since 2014, man.
Wow. I remember the first time I searched final expense, it was probably you and an old Colombian video that popped up.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Guy did a presentation to Miss Mabel.
Yeah, right. It wasn't in a single wide. It was like a nice table. It was a pretty house. I was like, that's not a final expense prospect.
No, and she didn't give a single objection. She just shook her head and said and signed the paper application.
Right. Yeah.
So unfortunately, Ms. Mabel's not our conversation today. I wanted to talk ethics in the business. It's something you're passionate about. It's something that many people fall down the wrong path of, and I think it's a great hot button topic for us to take on today. How do you feel about that?
Fine with me.
Awesome. So what do you see as the thing most people do wrong when they start to do wrong in the business? Let's start there.
What do I see that most people do wrong? I mean, I don't know. It's probably pushing sales when they don't need to, right? Looking at replacement opportunities that shouldn't be done. At probably that's like the least, that's bad, but it's the least worst. It can get as bad as legitimate fraud. I don't know. That's kind of a I don't know if that's such a thing. But actually going after and writing cases on people unbeknownst to them in order to generate commission income, to pad their own pockets and defraud a whole host of people.
I think it's worth noting that committing insurance fraud is actually a crime in the eyes of the law, right, David?
It is. Apparently so. And it's more and more prevalent nowadays than ever before.
Yeah. Oh, when you and I started in the business, you predate even me in the business. There was a paper application that was about 32 pages long, and you hoped that your fax machine sent all the pages to Settler's Life that night when you got back.
Right.
Now it's a lot easier to commit fraud just by pushing a button on blank senior products application. Do you feel like the carriers are kind of behind the times in protecting us from unscrupulous agents?
I sure do. It's funny. I think the carriers are going the wrong direction. I think the request from the agents over the years has been routinely make it easier for us to make a sale, right? I think what you and I, all three of us, can agree. We want to make it easier for us and our agents to make more money, to make more sales, to write more business. Well, there's an extreme to that where it becomes too easy, where all it takes to write business is not even being on the phone, but not much less in person with them, and requiring something like a favorite color, right? Or that's the equivalent of a signature. And of course, when you give somebody who has no scruples or ethics an inch, they're going to take 1,000 miles. And so I think it's a huge problem because of what I've gone through this year. I'm happy to talk about at length what others have gone through as well. And the carriers, why they don't care, I guess, because the way the system works is there's always somebody to swallow the debt above them, right? They're shielded from the direct, which they aren't to an extent. There's a cost they acquire too by underwriting all this stuff, so it's not like it's zero, but it just is shocking to me to the extent that the carriers just seemingly don't care about stopping this stuff. And we can go into details. It's amazing how bad people have been defrauded, and the carriers don't seem to really care.
Yeah, Colton, you can tell from assisting agents on an hourly basis in the chat that some of them literally have no idea what they're doing in the sale. And unfortunately, if there's no guidance on a sales process, how much guidance is there in the ethics department? Right. Obviously, many of these IMOs don't have an ethics department or an ethics conversation. And when money gets low in the bank and you realize how easy it is to be unscrupulous, that's when I'm sure a lot of mistakes take place. We're looking to make the business easier on the toolkit side, obviously with our tech. But Colton, what do you think when it comes to ethics is important for agents to realize in this business?
I think the biggest thing, and this is funny, David, this is going back so long ago. There's no way that you'd remember this, but this was like 2015 when I was just getting licensed. I was on 2016, going on your website and asking questions in the insurance forums and stuff. So it's just funny how full circle this is. That was so long ago, but
Small world.
yeah, I know, and it's. I say the answer to your question, Chris, is that one of the biggest things that I see lacking is on the ethics side is accountability, in the sense of agents. It's just been shown time and time again can write the worst possible business they want, get their money up front, get out of the business. That debt's going to roll up. They're going to walk away hands free with the cash in their pocket and face no repercussions. And that business model is replicated throughout, IMOs and agencies, and it just kills the upline and puts people out of business. So I think having accountability and making that a very strong point when you're bringing on new agents, it's something I did myself when you're growing an agency, is bring that up and make that be very important. Ethically, I don't just want agents who can sell. I want agents who can keep the business, right? So I think accountability is huge there, kind of paired with having just good moral, strong values.
David, how do you make sure as an agency owner or a mid-level builder or anyone with a downline that your agents aren't out there committing illegal fraud or even borderline fraud or just unscrupulous type activities?
Yeah, so great question. And I think this alone, what I'm about to describe, is worth the price of admission, right? Do what I'm about to recommend, because if you don't, you're going to lose 50, 100 grand like I did this year. So I had 3 agents real quick with one particular company, EAP, no signature required from the client, no IP address verification, bank account verification process. Everybody would know who this company is. Very popular. I got hit with I'm at like 90,000 in losses this year from this one company, right? Three agents, right? And this sucks. And I'm thank God I'm at a point in my business, not the humble brag, but like I can manage that. 3 years ago, it'd be real hard. So the thing is, like, like Colton said, takes people out. And the way that I have now developed a system, and guys, you can do this too. It's very simple. You have to develop the system to prevent this from happening, I think, which will take out 99% of this. Number one, you have to look at it like a typical self-defense approach. Like if you have a home defense setup and there's a robber that comes in your neighborhood, the robber's got you and the neighbor to choose who's you gonna break into and steal your crap. You've got the barking dog behind the door. You got the camera system out front. The neighbor has nothing. The lights are off. Nobody's barking. Who is that robber going to go to? The robber is going to take the low-hanging fruit all day long. He probably doesn't want to go to jail, right? The same is with these nefarious agents. They are looking for low-hanging fruit. They're looking for agency owners who are so disconnected from the day-to-day that they can go in, do all this stuff, and then run off in a month and a half and be done. So here's the steps that I've done that all of you can take too. So number one, when I enroll an agent, we are very upfront about it. The first video they watch is how we fight against fraud, chargeback issues, etc. And I tell them straight up, this is what's going to happen. You're going to complete an identity verification process that makes sure who you are is actually that person. So there are companies who get appointment requests from agents who aren't actually appointed, but they defraud another agent's identity. So that's a risk too. Yeah. The second thing is that, and this is the kicker, you have to audit all of your agency's business. You have to monitor new business. You have to look for production. You have to call the clients, not all of them, but a percentage of that book of business that's coming in. And the thing here, guys, the fraud looks the same, okay? There are signs that if you look for it, it'll be obvious, okay? And it's like a lot of production real quick from somebody who probably hasn't been having a conversation or talking with you. big policy sizes, big premiums that max out the advance amount.
Mhm.
It's very rare that somebody slow rolls a fraud. You know, they're going to max out the advance. So if you see a couple of deals come through between a few companies you have, call the people up, audit your books. That's what we do now. And here's what'll happen: the numbers won't work. The numbers are fake. And if you talk to somebody and you have one or two people that are like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, then you've got a fraud on your hands, and you can stop the advances immediately and stop the bleeding. Okay.
Yep.
And then what you want to do, and this is what we do now, is we collect affidavits from these people who are defrauded. We create a case so that we can present it to the authorities locally, federally, even get the FBI involved to talk about literal theft of seniors. And that's a big deal. And hand them this evidence over, and then go after them to get not just rid of their license, but to put them in jail. And then you also want to consider civilly suing these people for the money they take. And the cool thing is, like, so we're working up lawsuits against these three people I've described. If you have somebody who has been criminally charged and prosecuted for theft, you can then civilly sue them. And it's a non-dischargeable debt. It's like student loan debt. You can't bankrupt on it. It follows them to the rest of the end of their days. And you'll make it to where that they have to shackle that around the rest of their life. So I talk about all of this, and this is the key thing, guys, and for all you agency owners out there, you got to talk about this up front. Because at the end of the day, if you are the homeowner with the barking dog and the beware of, gun sign or whatever, they're not even going to even begin this process with you. They'll just go find another unwitting agency owner who doesn't know enough, who isn't watching things, and will take advantage of them.
Yeah. It's incredible that just the phrase you said, disconnected agency owners.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could operate an agency successfully and not know what the heck is going on. If they've managed that, they deserve the debt and fraud that falls in their lap.
Right.
I remember a good, well-known agency owner in the industry who reminded me and taught me to read reports. I mean, it sounds simple, but you get a commission statement, read it. If all the names start to be the last name of the agent, that's a little suspicious. If all of a sudden that business is rolling over and over again, if all of a sudden you're up lines, down lines, writing policies on each other, if it doesn't smell right, it's probably wrong. And to harken back to an old Craig Harveyism, he used to give us lessons every single month about ethics. Now, it's so easy once you start doing it wrong to keep doing it wrong and to push that line further and further. And before you know it, you're putting in fake bank accounts and writing up people that have been dead and people that don't know they bought from you. And before you know it, hopefully your license is taken from you and you can't continue to do that to other people. Colton, in your experience, you've seen tech move from paper applications to e-applications. Where do you see the industry going as we went from super hard to do business to way too easy over the next few years?
Yeah, I think especially a lot of the bigger companies and IMOs as well, they're so focused on tech. And obviously we know that tech makes everything easier. So it makes the good things easier to do, but it also makes the bad things easier to do. So I think when we have the ability to write a $10,000 or $20,000, final expense policy off our cell phone with nobody in the room, with nobody watching over us, I think that, of course, tech is so good for efficiency and it can improve, closing ratios and broaden your horizon. You can work multi-states and statewide and things like that. But I think that if these IMOs, especially in these carriers, it really comes down to the upline. But if they're not going to start cracking down and putting, preventative measures in place that, you can't just be writing business on whoever, whenever. There has to be something in place. So I think the tech is getting to a point where it's so advanced that fraud is almost like you can name, you walk into an agency, there's at least 2 people in there who have committed it in the last 60 days. It's very common. And I think that there's, the accountability needs to be there. But from a tech perspective, it's becoming incredibly easy. Like you mentioned with the paper apps, when I was first setting up my office, back in 2015, whatever, and I had, my pull-out drawer with 50 sheets stacked high of all my paper apps, even though I was never going to use half of them because they were all just getting to the issue Gerber, I think it's just it's became so easy. Back then, you had to, if you didn't get a checking and an account and routing number, there was no business to be submitted. It just wasn't the case. So now you can freely submit anything. So I know it's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think the tech is doing things you shouldn't do a little bit easier.
So if you don't mind me adding, Chris, I mean, like,
Go ahead.
it's your job, agency owners. These carriers don't care. That's how I look at it at this point. Call me a cynic. I kind of am. But it's your business. You got to manage this stuff. And it just takes one guy to destroy everything you've worked your ass off for. There's a guy in the business I know right now, $250,000 roll-up debt from one agent from Aetna. Maybe I shouldn't have said the company. You can beep it out.
So here's the thing. It all feels so good when you're getting paid daily.
It does.
Big old pride come in. I've had it. I mean, I saw hundreds and thousands of dollars come in daily, but you got to look a little bit further, go under the covers. Like, is that a roach under the covers, or is that supposed to be there? Like,
right.
It just seems, it's so nice to ride the override, but there's responsibility that comes with it.
And to add to that one last thing, not to give too long of an answer here, but I think to pick off what you just said, Chris, is getting paid is so easy. When I first started, I was getting paid as earned. I'd work 80 hours a week and get paid $60. Now you can submit an application and get the money deposited the next day. I think where the issue starts to lie as well from a tech perspective is it's so easy to get your commission paid to you that when you write business and it falls off, these agents that don't have the ethics instilled into them, like David mentioned, from day one, first video they watch, their immediate response is, how can I get this back on? I'll submit a fake check. I don't mind. That their mind goes to, how can I prevent this from happening again? And instead of going out there and writing good business, because what's best for the client 10 times out of 10 is also what's best for the agent. I think that the fear of how can I prevent losing my commission again, paired with a lack of ethics drilled on in the very beginning, is just a recipe for fraudulent business. And it's an unfortunate reality, I think, for the insurance space.
I'll add this in. You can't teach ethics. I think if somebody's a piece of crap and they'll rob the grandma blind, we actually show a dude who got sent to jail from a company that Chris uses a lot, probably you too, Colton, went to jail, Department of Illinois Corrections Office, but 8 years in jail for defrauding $300,000 in business, and started with his grandma, literally. I don't think you can teach ethics, so part of this, guys, it comes back to you. You have to, as the agency owner, make the decision. Are you bringing on good people that match your goals? Are you letting them know up front that you guys don't take this stuff seriously, that you actually audit your books, that you're on top of this stuff? Do you also make sure that you work to prevent fraud? One of the things I would recommend to all agency owners is to selectively choose carriers that have practices in place, the verified bank accounts. That stuff exists. Mm-hmm. To do IP verifications on e-apps to confirm where they say they are, and they actually follow through with that. That's easily done. Or does phone interviews. It's hard to commit fraud when there's more than one person involved. It's a heck of a lot easier when it's just a dude in his apartment, like you were describing, Colton. But this is your responsibility, guys. Like, it's my fault. I take the blame because I wasn't being as like you were suggesting, Chris, on top of the books, 100%. But guys, don't get lackadaisical. It will eventually. Every agency owner has this hit them. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so you might as well start to prepare in advance to counter this stuff.
What's interesting though is there are carriers that do check, that do IP verifications, and I'll share this one. Hopefully it's okay with the carrier. I won't mention their name. A vice president of the insurance carrier, in the process of emailing the hierarchy to let them know they were terminating an agent, had screenshots of multiple cases of signatures that just didn't look right, of multiple applications submitted on the same person with multiple signatures that just didn't look the same. Like, there are people that check these things. I feel like some of these carriers do have red flag systems where you're sending in business at 10 o'clock at night, or business that doesn't match. Someone's going through that and says, I don't think this looks right. Or early on in COVID, when people were all at home selling, but they were using face-to-face processes, full swaths of people got termed for doing it the wrong way. there are some carriers that do actually check these things.
But the one carrier that I had that, again, had this roll up this year, has an e-app and a verbal application process. They have the ability to check the IP, meaning the IP address where the location of the applicant and the location of the insured is. And they don't, at the time of sale, there's no verification or red flag system in place to do this. And they don't find out till the guy's written 25, 30 applications maxed advance and you're down 60,000, So it's just, that's why you got to be responsible for this stuff yourself as an agency owner. It's a real threat. Comes back to who you hire, your practices, and bringing the right talent on and making sure you monitor them, trust but cut the cards. That's what you got to do.
So what would you do though in a situation where you're auditing someone's business through your processes, however they are, and the agent calls you up and says, David, that's bullshit. You called my client, you put me on as earned because I went ghost for a month. Whatever they're angry about that you were using to protect yourself, you now have John agent calling you angry about your process. How do you handle that?
Sorry, it's a privilege, not a right to get an advance. I don't have to give you an advance. Go work for somebody else. Reasonable people will understand why that's the case. The unreasonable people won't. And those are likely the ones that will string you along to let their little scam job go that much further. So I don't care. I don't care what they think. It's my business. It's my responsibility to manage my business. And we're partners in this. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, I think a lot of agency owners don't have the logistics, the bank account, the experience to have the balls to say, oh, well, that's what we do. I think too many people are building on too small of a spread with too little experience and too little income to have the wherewithal to have that conversation.
Right. But you should be monitoring, at least should be doing at least what Chris is saying. Look at the books. Don't go a day without looking at commission, where the new production and pending is. Make sure you monitor it, guys. If you see 3 max out plans in a day with one company from some random people, just $250, $300 premiums, like, come on. Like it looks obvious if you start looking for it.
Yeah.
So.
Incoming chat.
Let's get into a more positive topic to kind of put a back into our conversation today. You've been one of the pioneers in social media. You've probably seen a lot more than most have in the industry. Where do you see the industry going in the next 5 to 10 years, in your opinion?
As far as from a social media standpoint or just in general?
But just in general, like with tech, lead changes, carriers coming and going, just a high view, where do you see the future?
I don't think it's really changed that. I mean, we've seen tech. I mean, we look back 10 years from when I started. I mean, the foundation of the business is the same. People know they need this, but they just won't do it on their own. So there's got to be an agent involved to help them do the job. I think the fundamentals are going to stay the fundamentals. Are you going to have more people who do sales without agents? Sure. Are you going to have more telesales, more virtual sales? I'm sure we will. But I think within the confines of final expense, Medicare, kind of the senior market, I don't think it's really going to change all that much. I mean, the biggest change we've seen in 10 years is what, Chris? Maybe telesales being a big role. Agents not on the insurance form griping about how it's a scam. Like, it's legit now. But still, telesales is still functionally the same as face-to-face in the sense it's people convincing strangers to get their policy like they know they should. I don't think that's going to change.
I like the fact that you said you still need an agent there to kind of get people to do what they know they need to do. There are large tech organizations that have said to us privately, nope, I can't say that. There are organizations that really don't want agents involved in the process. There are large multi-million, billion-dollar people that would rather just cut us out of the whole thing. But human nature still requires me to look over at Colton and say, Colton, if you died tomorrow, what's Victoria going to do about it? And when he looks back at me plainly and says, I don't know, that'd be a problem. Then we have a conversation to have.
I think there's what was the stats on the affordable health care plan? Granted, this is a couple years in the past, but I think for all the money and time spent on passing the affordable health care, I think the net increase of insurance was like 1 million. And early on, it's probably different now. But that's because the agent population was taken out of the business because commissions disappeared. If you guys remember that, the whole health insurance business model collapsed. The navigators are supposed to come in and help these people. And like for all that time, effort, money, and energy, the net increase was marginal. agents matter. We play the pivotal role, and yes, they would like to get rid of us. We are a necessary evil, but they cannot do it. I don't think they ever will. I think for a portion of the population, maybe they'll do without us, but this is just a product that people need consultation on for the vast majority of the time. And that's job security, if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. One other thing I want to throw your way is, Colton, you've seen this happen as well. David, I'm sure you have as well. The end of the year changes. Products pulled overnight, carriers stopping this, beginning that. This is the season for change, and a lot of new agents may not be aware of that. But Colton, have you seen the season of change strike the industry before come December?
Yeah, and I think it throws a lot of people off, which, going back to the fraud thing, when somebody's only sold one thing and that thing gets taken away, they have no idea what to do, and then mistakes are made.
David, Sons of Norway, God rest its soul, has pulled its guaranteed issue product. GCU.
Who would have thunk it?
GCU went dark on a Friday news dump. Settlers died over a weekend once. This is the season for change. What's an agent to do if their favorite product goes to grass one Friday afternoon?
They'll be fine. It's nobody's business is based off of one product. It shouldn't be. If you're a product focused agent, that's a problem. People buy you. They buy you. The sale is about your connection and understanding of what they want. And if you can make that connection, they'll buy whatever you're selling. Products or insurance carriers are tools. They're a means to an end. They're not an end of itself. We've been through a multitude of carriers ourselves, all three of us, and we're fine. So if you lose a carrier because they go, to the wayside, no stress. There's always something else in the foreground coming out that we can pick up. So no big deal.
Yeah, there's probably too many carriers out there right now.
There is. It's too many good carriers. I commonly say I don't think there's many bad carriers like there used to be even like 5 years ago. They're all kind of good. Some are better than others, but you'll pivot. You'll be fine.
There's so many that take COPD right now. It's not even funny. That's not even like
standard too,
Yeah. But that's good. Don't overwhelm yourself with too many carriers. But if something changes, don't panic. Just continue to push forward. Change will actually do you good in most circumstances.
Yeah, for sure.
We try to keep these things short for the viewing audience's pleasure. Obviously, everybody knows who you are. If they don't, it's pretty strange, like I said. But take the last minute and promote yourself or anything you have got in the pipeline that we should be aware of.
Sure. DavidDuFord.com if you want to check out my website. We're about to do a major rebrand on how we recruit, train, and coach insurance agents in the final expense space. We also recruit for Medicare, ACA, and annuities, but we are tripling down on the coaching and mentorship side of the business. We've done some surveys internally and realized there's a huge opportunity for more individual coaching and training in this business that really isn't around. And you'll be seeing some more information on that over the next month or so in end of December 2022. And also YouTube, but just put in David DuFord and you'll see my content if you haven't already.
Outstanding. As my kid would say, if I'd allowed her to have her own channel, like the video, comment below, subscribe as we push closer to 2,000 subscribers. We're not near the 35,000 that David DuFord is. Bow at your knees, but we are working our way there one person at a time. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being here, David and Colton. Thanks for you joining us as well.
Thanks, guys.